Welcome back to another Pro Tips with Tom Russo Photography. I am here today with Chelsey. Welcome, Chelsey. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. So today, guys, she is going to talk to us about your wedding stationery and what to do and what not to do and all the fun insight on how to plan for your invitations and your save the dates and all that fun stuff. So Chelsey, why don't you introduce yourself, where you're from, what your company you're a part of, and tell everyone about what you guys do.
Sure. So I'm Chelsey Blake. I'm one of the owners of Hudson Paperie, and we are a design studio for all things wedding stationery. So anything paper, we will do. We focus on save the dates, wedding invitations, menu, ceremony programs, all that kind of fun stuff. But we also do wedding signage and things like that. We are located in Hoboken, New Jersey, but I'm originally from the suburbs of Philly. So I'm a transplant.
Very nice. Hey, listen, Philly's a great area. You can't knock Philadelphia.
It is. I love it.
Hoboken being so close to New York, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get like the metropolitan, but you get the nice little country, so you're good. Okay, so most clients, they really want like that nice invitation and the nice stationery for their wedding, but they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay that high ticket price. So what are some ways that, if a bride is looking to get really nice stationery for her wedding invitation, stuff like that, what is some stuff that she can do or he can do to, kind of keep the cost down a little bit?
So I always tell my couples, because budget is the biggest thing with wedding. You've got this huge event you're planning, all of these expenses. How do you get the day of your dreams without going over the top? And I always say that there's a happy medium. It's just a matter of determining what are the things that are important to you. Is it that you really want some of these high-end finishes like wax seals and these fancy ribbons, or do you want to just have a really classy design and you don't care so much about how it comes together? And really finalizing what those important pieces are will make sure you get the wish list, but still keeping it at a point where you're comfortable in terms of it.
No, that's great. Yeah, because I've talked to, I have a buddy of mine who's actually getting married, and that's one of the things that they're struggling with is trying to price out. They want, the custom made, invitations, stuff like that, but they're trying to save some money. So that's really good that, there's are ways that you can bring your cost down, but still get exactly what you want for your invitations and anything really. Okay, so speaking of cost, what is the average cost for a basic stationery package? And when we say basic, what does that include? And like, are there other packages that clients can put together to kind of get what they want?
So we really have an a la carte experience. We would rather create a package that includes the items you want rather than saying here's what you get and that's what it is. But having said that, our packages really start at about $1,200, and that would be a set of 100 invitation suites, your invitation card, your reply card, the envelopes, all addressed.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the basics of what you would need for the wedding. And that would be standard paper stock, standard printing. Having said that, most of our clients probably spend closer to the $4,000 to $6,000 range on a broader stationery package where we are doing save the dates, wedding invitations, a few paper pieces for the actual day itself, and maybe some elevated paper stocks and print methods like letterpress on handmade paper, that sort of thing.
Cool. Okay, so clients come to you guys and they're not really sure what they want or how far in advance they should guess or put their order in. So what's like the average time frame to get a standard stationery package with save the dates and invitations? And then like if a client's not really sure what they want, what are some pointers that you can give them to kind of gear them towards what they're looking for in the end?
So in terms of timing, if we are starting with save the dates, it's good to start the conversation anywhere from 8 to 12 months before the wedding. That way we've got a little bit of time to get to know each other, finalize what your style is, and then create your save the date so that it's being mailed out at an appropriate time. If we're starting with wedding invitations, if you're deciding to forego save the dates, then we say 6 months. If you haven't started the conversation with us by 6 months in advance, we're going to feel like it's a little bit tight. We can still get it done, but it's going to feel a little tight. So that's what I have to say in terms of timing. And then in terms of figuring out what it is you want, that's kind of our job. We'll sit down and talk about the wedding and what is going on. Is it a full weekend where you've got events the Friday before and then all day Saturday and then Sunday there's, a farewell brunch? Or is it something a little bit more simple? And even how is the actual wedding set up? Is it sit down? Is it cocktail style? All of those details are really going to determine what items you need, and then we can talk about the items you want on top of that, to kind of figure out what the best package is for you.
So now, what would you constitute being something that they need versus a want with a bride or a groom, essentially?
So a lot of times, a great example, you need some sort of what we call escort card display. Escort cards being the names and table numbers. It tells you where to sit. A lot of people call them place cards. That's totally fine. Right. Technically, place cards are a little different, okay. But that's something you have to tell people where they're going to sit, what table they're going to go to. So whether you're doing a seating chart, board style, something a little bit different, or you're doing the folded cards, the standard, that's something you need. Something you might want that's not a total necessity would be fun stuff like cocktail napkins that have a drawing of your dog on it, or right. Like the little elements that make it really cool and personal, but if you didn't have them, you'd still have the event and everything would be fine.
All right. Okay. So when you guys get a set of, when clients come to you and, they're looking to place an order, what do you find most popular, speaking of place cards versus the seating chart boards? What do you find is most popular with a bride and groom? And then even so, what's more cost effective?
So in terms of seating charts and place cards specifically, the charts have been a very big trend over the last couple of years. Everybody wants the chart. The charts are great as long as you're setting it up in a way that makes it easy for your guests. Okay. There can be this like bottleneck effect where all 150, let's say, guests are all trying to read one poster at the same time, and it can be a little chaotic. So we just make sure that we're either printing multiples or there's a backup like a maitre d' who's telling people where they can go. But seating charts have definitely been more popular. And then in the last couple of years, it's become even more than that. So how can you make it even cooler, even more different? So we'll work with a lot of florists to create larger displays. For instance, we did a New Year's Eve wedding this year. That was awesome. They just went all out on everything. It was very cool, very Gatsby inspired because 2020.
Wait, I did a wedding that was Gatsby inspired, actually. Oh, yeah, on New Year's at the Madison Hotel in Morristown. So that's funny that I was like, imagine it's the same wedding. What
yeah, right? This one was at Liberty Warehouse in Brooklyn. So different wedding, but still very cool vibe.
Right.
So we worked with the florist on that, and she created this really cool indoor tree. And then we had all of the escort cards hanging off. And it said everyone's name and their table number like they always do, but it was like the coolest display. So that's starting to be more of the...
It's funny you say that because I photographed a wedding back in September. I'm not sure if you ever heard of the Park Chateau or Nanina's Park. So the owner's daughter got married, and the studio that I work for, on top of working for myself, they're like preferred vendor photographers at their venues. Anyways, for the second day of the wedding, which was the Saturday, the place cards were hanging on this massive tree in the chapel on the grounds of the venue. I thought it was the coolest thing, thinking it was a one-time deal, but now that you said that, that's becoming a trend. That's pretty awesome that people are actually doing trees with name cards. Because sometimes you go to weddings and there are tons of names, and sometimes it's hard to find your name. So piggybacking off of that, what are maybe like some pointers that you can give for brides and grooms when they're doing their place cards, as far as fonts go or style of card that makes it easier for a guest to read? Because sometimes you stand there for 5 minutes looking for your name, and meanwhile it's right in front of you because you had a hard time understanding what the letters were.
So not every, but a lot of couples, they really want to play up the script type styles. They love the script. They want it to be all fancy, and it is beautiful. But on place cards specifically, it can cause some problems because it can be a little bit more difficult to read, especially if you're just trying to go in quick and rifle through. So we try to push our brides and grooms, couples in general, to do more of a block type style, legible for the name.
Right.
Add something else that's a little bit fancy if you want to dress it up or make it something a little cooler. That way, they're coming in, they're doing exactly what they need to do, finding their name in a second and able to move on. And then obviously, which your venue or planner should do for you, alphabetize. They need to be alphabetical or it's going to be
I was
chaos.
just about to ask that because I went to a wedding recently where the name cards were done by table and not by alphabetical, and I ended up being on like one of the lower number tables, and I was looking for, my last name is Russo, so looking for the R's. That's good that you bring that up. That's something that I noticed that can be a little bit of a struggle because, you know, you may think you're at table 5 and you're at table 25 and your last name starts with a P, and, you know, meanwhile you're looking for the P's. That's a really good point that you bring up. I think that's something that most couples don't think to do. They think by table rather than alphabetical order. Okay, so what is the benefit of hiring a private company like yourself to do the stationery versus, say, going online and ordering invitations from a Zazzle or like Shutterfly or Snapfish, stuff like that?
They're endless. There's endless reasons why it's better. The big one is always, to me, personalized attention. We
Right.
are a really small company. It's me and 2 other women that work beside me. By the end of the process, you know each of us by name, by face. You've talked to us on the phone. It's really more of an interactive experience than let me just select something and then, oh crap, something went wrong. I have to call customer service and sit on a phone for an hour trying to figure it out. Um, and then on top of that, which also falls in line with being personalized attention, is it's a unique experience for you as a couple. We're creating something for you. You're not just picking out of a you know, a template and then trying to cram in your information to make it work. It is completely designed around what is your style, what is it that you want, how do we need to word this so that it makes sense given your situation, for who's hosting or what's going on. It's just really, it comes down to that personalized attention. You can't get that when you go to just a large big box online store.
I agree 100%. I think that, you know, there are so many amazing small business companies out there that, you know, when you find them and you can meet with that person and it's a connection that you become a friend in the end. You know, you're working with these people for over a year and you just develop a friendship. You become Facebook friends. With social media nowadays, it's so powerful that you're not just client to vendor. You end up in the end becoming a friend with them. And, you know, I have brides and grooms that I become very close friends with. You know, we talk on a weekly basis, family and stuff like that. So like, it's a really nice when you can find a great vendor that is a private company and you're able to connect with them on more than just, like you said, customer service where you're calling on the phone, sitting on the phone for over an hour just to fix a problem. And then in the end, sometimes they can't even fix it because it's the printers are backed up and stuff like that. So what is the process like for you guys when a bride and groom submits an order? You know, how does walk everybody through kind of like what you guys go through to create the invitations and the save the dates and the thank you cards and the place cards, stuff like that?
So our whole process starts with a design consultation of some sort. So you fill out a form on our website, let's say, that says you're interested. You'll get a call, usually from me, sometimes from one of my associates, Carly or Caitlin. We'll chat a little bit and then schedule a more formalized design consultation, which is usually about an hour. Right now, because of COVID-19, they're all virtual. So they're a little bit shorter because it's a little bit of a different process. But typically we'll sit, we'll chat, talk about style, color scheme, hear a little bit about your story as a couple. We like to incorporate interesting either moments or facts or about how you met into your stationery in some way. Like we're working with a couple right now who is getting married in Jersey City. They made their home together in Jersey City. They love Jersey City. So we had our artist create a really cool sketch of the Jersey City skyline, highlighting like the Colgate clock and all of these little pieces that are meaningful to them. So it's just cool because when their guests are going to open up their invitations, they get to see this like
Right.
awesome little personal piece. Anyway, so we'll chat through things like that. Get a really good sense of what it is the couple is looking for, what the wedding is like, and then look at some samples, show them paper stock and different ink colors, and we could print like this, or we could package it like this, to get a sense of what they're drawn to. From there, we create a proposal. It's just a broad scheme of here's what we're thinking with design. This is sort of what the package would look like, what would be included. Here's the timeline that we would want everything to follow. And then once we've fine-tuned that, we get started. And another one of the benefits of working with a small company like us versus going online is we really walk, we take all the guessing out of figuring out the etiquette of how things should be written. We know, we've done it. We know in all different situations how things could be written. And so we just have everybody we have our clients give us dry information, and then we come up with, this is how we think everything should read, give them the okay on it, obviously. But rather than having them submit, a lot of times they don't know how things should be written, depending on who's hosting or what time of day or all those things. So we'll collect all that information and then we start designing. And that's the fun process. We usually allow about 2 weeks for initial designs. That gives me enough time to really dig deep, get the creative juices flowing, piece together things that they saw when we met that they liked, and all that kind of stuff. We'll send them their first proofs, and then we've got a little bit of back and forth through the proofing process to fine tune everything. That usually takes another 2 weeks or so. Then once we have approvals, everything goes to print. That's when I pass it off to Caitlin, one of my members of my team who works with all of our print vendors and makes sure that files are set up right and the paper stock is correct and does all the ordering for everything. And then when everything comes in, it jumps to another one of my associates, Carly, who is responsible for making sure everything is absolutely perfect, puts everything together, ties all your ribbons on, lines your envelopes, does all of that kind of stuff, so that once we're presenting everything to our couples, it is absolutely perfect, ready to go.
Awesome. So when that's an amazing process that you guys have come up with. I think it's an experience that you take a client through that they won't get anywhere else. I think that's when it's exciting to know that it's customizable, and I feel like that I would love to go through that type of process, and I hope that I do, because it's just a cool to get there and customize everything. So do you guys like when the client comes in to start designing, is there like a set of do you guys have like colors that they pick from, or is literally everything from down to the color and to the shape of the invitation, is everything customizable?
Everything is customizable, but we do have a design library, we call it, of here are our most popular colors, or our colors of the season sort of thing, trending colors. Same thing with type styles. And then we have lots of samples. And so from our initial either phone call conversation or whatever they filled out, the contact form online, I'll have some sense of what they're looking for. So I'll pull samples ahead of time that I think would speak to them. If they want something really minimal and modern, I'll pull a few samples that I know speak to that. If they want something traditional and formal, I'll pull a few. So they're seeing things, and there are times where somebody comes in and they're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I want. I just am in more of a burgundy color scheme.
Right.
And that's fine. We can totally do that and just tweak the coloring. But more often than not, it's, ooh, I like that border and I love that script style and how you've sort of formatted the names there. And we're kind of picking and choosing and coming up with something unique.
That's a great thing that I don't think most people know, is that even your invitations and all of that stuff, that's I always say that, a bride and groom should be able to um, have everything they ever wanted at a wedding, right? Don't listen to anybody else. If you want to go with, a customizable invitation, go for it. I always say that if you get married, you're supposed to get married once in life, right? Most people do, some people don't, and that's perfectly okay. And there are instances where you get the chance to really, have full control over a part of your wedding day, and this is a perfect example of that. So there I'm gonna jump back to a question I had asked you earlier, kind of tie this one into it as well. Is more relates to budget. So what are some pointers that you can give to a client coming to you guys and wanting to, for you guys to do their invitations and stuff like that? But they want to stay on a lower budgeted side. What are like maybe some options that they can pick from that you can say, okay, and they say, okay, so for example, say they want to spend anywhere between 1,800 and 2,000, right? That's about the budget they're looking to spend on invitations. What are some pointers you can give to a client that's looking to stay within that price range for their invitations? Stuff like that.
So you can get a really beautiful suite for under 2,000. Very beautiful. What we would suggest is that we stay away from some of the more costly print methods, which would be adding those like gold foil accents, or doing something letterpressed, and staying away from the more premium paper stocks, card stocks that are extra thick, or handmade papers. All of those things add, because they are so really labor intensive. It's a different way to print. It's a different way to make the paper. So as long as we can stay away from some of those, we can get a full suite that still has, like a beautiful packaging with a vellum wrap and a ribbon and a seal, still for under 2,000. It's just a matter of really selecting the materials more than anything. Our design is our design, and obviously, yes, you are paying to have that service, but it's in the materials that really will determine where are we going to fall for budget.
Gotcha. That's a good point. Yeah, because most people don't think that. They think, oh, it's just a piece of paper, but it's not just a piece of paper. It's there's so many thicknesses and layers that go into that some people, they go all out on their invitations, and then they'll like, okay, well, we're just going to go with something cheaper. And like sometimes it's okay if you're on a really tight budget, but listen, I always say, there's that phrase, buy nice, not twice, right? You want to buy the nice things, especially for your wedding. And you shouldn't look to impress anybody for your wedding because it's your wedding day. But I feel like, if they're looking to impress, family and stuff like that, a great way to do it is to really, throw a ton of money into the budget for your invitations. And I think that the fact that you can customize to the ability of even the printing is a huge thing that most clients don't know about. I think that's really important that they should understand when it comes to that. Now, do you guys outsource your printing, or you guys do everything in-house?
We don't. Our printing's done offsite.
Okay.
We have a couple of different print facilities, and we'll just kind of pick and choose based off of the scope of the project. We know who does what best.
Okay.
But we have great relationships with all of them.
That's awesome.
We call them probably too much. So
they're probably like, oh, it's these people again.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay, so what is like the most elaborate invitation that you guys have ever had experience, or like what's like your most famous, I guess you can say famous, invitation and suite that you guys have developed, and like what was the cost for something like that?
Wow, that's a really good question. The most expensive, or the most grandeur, I guess, invitations that we've ever done were pushing the total stationery budget was somewhere in the $10,000 range.
Okay.
They were really, nothing was spared. We had a velvet pocket that everything went into. The velvet pocket was foil stamped with a custom monogram. All of the pieces were done on premium paper stock, a mixture of foil stamping and letter pressing. So there was all gold accents and details on them. The card edges were beveled and then gilded in gold. It was really like every single detail, everything that we could do pretty much was done. They were very, very cool. It was for a really formal wedding.
Okay.
They were beautiful though.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always you never really know like what people will do for their invitations, and the fact that they use velvet, to me, velvet already, like I was like, oh, that is big numbers. But that's yeah, I that's something that I find is very intriguing too, to know that like people will go to those lengths even for their invitations, where it's unfortunate to say, but like the invitations, you would only, as the client, would only hope that they would keep the invitations for years to come, for memories of it. But some people are just like, all right, invitation, bye. But like me, if I spent that much money on an invitation, I would frame the thing, hang it on a
Oh,
wall, and keep it there
yeah.
and shine lights. I'd be like, this is like my prized possession. No, but
Most of our clients do end up framing their invitations. I mean, are they like front and center in their living room? Probably not. It's more of a keepsake.
right.
But when you put all of that thought into it, it really is something super special, and it's signifying this momentous occasion.
Right.
So, it's very meaningful.
Of course. So, what is some advice that you can give? Any other advice, more or less, that you can give to a client when they're thinking about their stationery for their wedding day?
My best piece of advice is to plan out your timeline, know when to come see us. Too often I have people come like 4 months before the wedding and they want this highly customized experience, and we just don't have the time anymore. And we'll do our best, but
Right.
I don't like to promise to work with somebody and then know that their invitations are going to be mailed out super late.
Hmm.
So I always say, plan it out. Come to see us in advance. It's never too early. There is never a time where you'll come to see us and I'll be like, oh, it's too early. Come back next year. Like, we can start the process at any time. That's probably my best piece of advice. And then the second thing is to really just understand that yes, it is paper, and I don't, if it's not something that's important to you, that's absolutely okay. There are avenues for you to go to get the information to your guests. But if it is, this is such a beautiful day. You're making this major life commitment. You're choosing to do it, celebrating with all of your family and friends, obviously post COVID-19.
Of course.
Typically
Right.
surrounded by your family and friends, and you want every piece of it to reflect that specialness. I sat with my friend's grandmother one time, and she was going through her like keepsake box, and she pulled out her wedding invitation. It was super super simple, because back then it was like there's one style, one card, one typeface, you just did it. But she's going through looking at it with this, like, her eyes got all glassy, and she's just telling us the story of what it was like. She remembered the day she went there with her mother to pick these out, and how excited she was to start her life with her husband. It was like so beautiful to watch her have that moment.
Right.
And that's what your stationery does. Like, it's a piece of your history. That's what we say. It is literally a piece of your history as a couple together.
And that's something that I think a lot of people forget, is that that's also another physical memory that you can take with you from your wedding day. It may not be, it may not be something from the actual day of the wedding, but the process of creating that invitation and all of that stationery for your wedding is a keepsake memento. Everyone always says everything, when your wedding day is over, the only things you really take with you are your photographs and your videos. But remember something, your stationery is that too. You may not keep if you do, the seating chart board, you may not keep that 35, 40 years later. You may not. But the invitations, though, you put that in a box, in a shadow box, in a book, and just keep it somewhere. And, years down the road, you take a look at it again. That's another physical memento that you can take away with you. And I always say you want to try to, bring, some thought, and really, take the time to create those invitations, and really, have them in the end. Essentially is what you want to do. You want to have, something else to take away with you other than, your photos and your videos. So where can people find you? Social media wise, website wise, best way to contact you, and, again, where people can find you, essentially.
So we are on Instagram. That's the best place to kind of peruse our work and get a sense of who we are. That's at Hudson Paperie, which is paper IE. I always have to spell that out for everybody. Or on our website, hudsonpaperie.com. And pretty soon we're launching an online store where we will be selling semi-custom suites. So you still get most of the process, but it'll be a little bit more are a little less selective. We'll have a couple of designs for people to choose from, and we'll offer a bit of a lower price point than the fully custom experience.
Awesome. Well, guys, that wraps it up for today's Pro Tips interview with Chelsey. Chelsey, I want to thank you so much for taking your time today to talk to everybody about your company. And I will be featuring all of her information at the link at the bottom of this video. You guys can go ahead, check out their work. They're absolutely wonderful people. I recommend them to everybody looking to get customized stationery for their wedding. Chelsey, thank you again, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you.
Have a good day.